The Tampan tulip works started with the textiles from the south of Sumatra, and these tampons are also called ship cloths. On these ship cloths you often find a ship, and on the ship there's humans and animals and plant-like structures who are voyaging to the next world. I became very familiar with these tampons. So it started with a commission, but then I started to do a lot of research. I went to Indonesia and Sumatra and found several books on these tampon textiles. I was mostly interested in this motif of the ship, because for me it not only talked about like this transcending from here to the afterlife, but also navigating life itself, and maybe also talking about migration. I've made collages based on these motifs with pressed tulip petals. For me, the tulip fields reminded me of a weaving. That's how I started thinking about using the petals. So these tulip works, I make them every season, so they're very sort of timekeepers of this seasonal aspect. So I usually try to get a huge variety of different tulips, and with those tulips that I press, I have sort of like a whole color palette. The tulip collages was also this element where you see something from far away and you see sort of the imagery, but then when you walk up close, there's this detail that where you all of a sudden discover like, oh, they're made from petals. They're actually from the world of nature. So this kind of feeling of zoomed out and zoomed in, I think that's something that I was very interested in, that you can experience a work from two different moments. So these Tampan tulip series and this way of seasonal work became sort of like a rhythm for my practice. In the fall, I often work with the ceramic works. So the ceramics are also an ongoing part of my practice. I've been making these domes as part of my work, and these domes are sort of moon shapes that to me refer to our relationship of the atom to the universe, our understanding of that we're here, but that there's also this whole cosmology that's around us and which actually influences our lives and that of others, like seed bursts or the tides of the sea. I've been very attracted to working with textile as a way of making sculpture that is there and not there. So the floor pieces, they take up space, but on the other hand they're made from a very light material that you can also fold away. So I think that idea of also the horizontal plane has been something that I've been quite occupied with. And so for me the floor pieces are also often a place maybe that I've used for performance, or a place to retrieve to, maybe to lie down on or recline on, and being read to. I like the physicality of the wool and the coloring of the wool, like they're almost like abstract painting in the space. I started using these ceramics also on them to create sort of a kind of contrast between this very touchable element and then the glass-like more ephemeral element on the work. So for the show at Tina Kim, I made these new textiles called Ancestral structures. I made them with pineapple cloth. These works are thinking about this tree of life or this tree of knowledge, thinking about our ancestry, not only our human ancestry, but that of all creatures, all those that came before us. I'm very invested in this idea of how can we find our place in our surroundings, considering ourselves more woven back into this history of time, but also of creatures, of seas, of trees, and thinking of like how other beings have other knowledge systems and how we could learn from them. So for instance, trees have these like root canal systems that they communicate with each other, and humans have more these organs where there is this hierarchy. And I think thinking about like these systems that trees have and how they exchange through their root canals is really something that I've been thinking about, like, and also how sessile beings have maybe this other type of knowledge, and how sessileness, like stillness, could maybe be a way of thinking about our current state. Like I've been thinking about like sleeping a lot, like how when we're sleeping we're like less present, and how if we would be continuously sleeping, or if how we're molting, like how some animals like a snake is molting and losing its skin, like how we could maybe transform and find new ways of being. The pineapple cloves, to me they feel like they're also sort of like lanterns, or they're like maybe room dividers, or they have like a very shadow-like element. So this element of like the ghost or the shadow. Also thinking of ourselves as maybe like shadows, because we're not completely in ourselves maybe at this moment in time. Also with the ancestral structures, I'm thinking about this architecture of how being into nature, there's this moment where you could maybe get lost, like in real nature, but how that kind of confrontation could also have maybe a remedial moment. So I think that kind of lostness, that labyrinth, that maybe space where we're finding ourselves in, something that we could, you know, through sleeping or meditating or just being slower, finding our way back into this lineage of this deeper time.